Have you popped into the Lighthouse in Toowoomba as yet? If you haven't, you really do need to check it out. The Lighthouse is a dedicated youth writing centre, workshop spaces, and an exhibition gallery. And it's the gallery that has a wonderful exhibition on at the moment. The Wright Gallery, it's called, at the Lighthouse, which is on the corner of Margaret and Hume Streets in Toowoomba. This exhibition is all about making your own music in this busy, noisy old world. It's called Piano Fingers, and the artist behind it is Caroline Mageri, and she joins me now. Caroline, good morning and welcome.
Hello, David. How are you?
Caroline, I'm very, very well. Lovely to have a chat to you this morning. So tell me the story. Piano Fingers began life as a picture book. Tell me the story of that picture book.
It was through the years that my daughter was learning to play piano. So from about 4 onwards, we got this really beaten up old piano. And the trials and tribulations of her learning to play and going all the way through to nearly going to the conservatorium was really the inspiration behind it. So as I would sit through endless lessons with various music teachers, singing teachers, clarinet, all this, because it was her obsession, I formed this idea, and while I did so, I drew an awful lot of pictures, and many of those pictures are in this exhibition, and that's part of how this story started.
And when you say the trials and tribulations, what made it such a? I mean, obviously the end result for your daughter was fantastic in terms of the standard that it sounds like she attained. But what made it such a troublesome journey?
I think that each child has. We all have those dreams and those fleeting moments when something that we were reaching for, we only can dream about. And in this instance, I observed that my daughter had these the gifts towards certain things, and it occurred to me that that's actually a very poignant moment. Sometimes we even miss it. I had all sorts of strange dreams I never told any about when I was a kid, and I just love that moment when a child falls in love with some idea of what they're going to be. I wanted to celebrate that in this book because we focus on the attainment, on getting the skills, on what are you going to do with it when you get older. Is it worth all the money we're spending on your soccer practice or whatever it is? I really wanted to focus on the moment that we fall in love with something. And that was really the point behind the story.
And is there also that element, though, because in any large family, and you sort of describe the book, it tells the story of B, who's from a big noisy family who make all sorts of noisy noises. Is there that element of, is it harder for a child, presumably by the sounds of things, the youngest child, to find something that they love, just like their brothers and sisters have before them? Is it a little bit harder because they've seen their brothers and sisters discover their own things that make them happy and their own passions, and that makes you all more determined, but probably even a little bit worried? You've got to find your own, and worried that perhaps you won't. Is that sort of an element of the book as well?
Oh, definitely. That was how I set up the tension and the conflict initially in this, because the youngest child, inevitably, there is enormous weight above when you can see everyone else. It seems like an impossible thing. Everyone else has got all this stuff going on. And so that's why B basically descends those long stairs to this rather strange music room and enacts an entire career downstairs. So I actually really enjoyed that part of the story. It was really funny.
I think that's a really interesting thing too, before we talk about the actual exhibition itself, is, the inspiration, as you say, came from your daughter, but I'm always fascinated by, sometimes it seems when an author, and an artist, and a writer says, the inspiration came from this, we almost tend to sort of think or assume, oh, well, the whole story, is based on the real story of your daughter. But in this case, it's basically that was just the inspiration, but then the idea really takes on a life of its own and goes into the sublime. That must be the really fun part for you, is where you can take this story, because it is essentially fiction, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. It was, it was very much observed. For example, Isla, the older sister, who B has the most interaction with, she's very much based on the teenagers we used to observe going to all the concerts that we went to, because there was this sense of, when they're 5, 6, 7, they still like to perform, they still like to be the centre of attention. The minute they hit 13, the emo phase kicks in, and the beanie goes on, and they sit down at the piano with such ill grace because they don't want people to look at them or hear them. They're there because their parents have, you actually see a mother grab a child and comb their hair for them before they sit down.
Yeah.
It's excruciatingly embarrassing, and I think Isla had that sort of. Was going through that phase, but she was also a good musician by that point. And so that's the irony of it. The little ones couldn't play, but had an absolute ball. The older ones could play, didn't want to be there. So,
yeah. It's probably playing out. Is our Stepford on at the moment in Toowoomba, or is it just finished? But it's probably played out, 1,000 times every day during the Stepford, I'm sure. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell me, so your exhibition now is that's on at the Wright Gallery at the Lighthouse is the illustrations from this book. Is it? It must be wonderful to be able to take these illustrations and make them even, make them the centre of attention and put them on display, perhaps even in an even larger way that you've been able to in a book, and really sort of make them the focus. Is that fun for you, or is that an enjoyable thing for you?
Absolutely. I began as a painter. In fact, this entire book really began with one painting that I did of my daughter, and it was sold in a Sydney gallery. And from then on, I kept painting pictures of my daughter, with the piano. I just loved doing it. And then eventually, as I began to form the book, being someone who thinks in pictures and writes to a fair degree initially in pictures, I accumulated such a pile. And I just kept them. I thought, I like these pictures. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. When this chance came up, I was extremely, really happy about it, because you don't get that chance to exhibit illustrations. Generally speaking, there aren't many dedicated illustration galleries, and this space being one in which writing and children's books is a focus gives me that opportunity to put the work on the walls, talk about the work. We've had someone come in, play violin. We're having Camerata come in. It's really a dream come true for me.
How fantastic!
Very cool.
And I'm assuming that there's more illustrations in this exhibition than actually were in the original book. Is that right?
Yeah. It's slightly embarrassing. The actual illustrations from the published work were sold in London at Chris Biddle's gallery. That's a dedicated illustration exhibition that they have there every year, the November Illustrators Show, and that's fantastic. However, every book does generate an awful lot of peripherals, and
of course, yeah.
I also can't stop myself painting.
So in some cases, not or in most cases, by the sounds of it, not necessarily the illustrations directly from the book, but these illustrations will sort of, if you enjoyed the book, then these will sort of take the story a little bit further, I guess, and well worth checking out.
Yes, it expands on the world of piano fingers, and I can happy to walk people through it and explain it. I really do enjoy talking about the background to books.
That is
so people are most welcome.
Caroline, lovely to have a chat to you. Congratulations on the exhibition, and we'd encourage people to go down and have a look. How long is it on for down at the Wright Gallery at the Lighthouse?
Right until the end of this month.
All right. Excellent. Well, lovely to have a chat to you this morning, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, David.
Caroline Mageri there. So if you want more details, have a look at the Lighthouse's website. or their Facebook page. They are on the corner of Margaret and Hume Street and the Wright Gallery within the Lighthouse complex. Well worth checking out. 2 to 7, ABC News on the way at 7 o'clock.